And we're recording, and I'll admit everyone to the meeting.
Thank you, Lizzie.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's San Mateo County Harbor District Finance Committee meeting. It's September 30th. We're going to see who all is here and review the agenda. So to let everybody know who's here, does everybody want to introduce themselves? Tom Mateusz here.
Virginia Chen Karali.
Julie Van Hoff.
Jim Pruitt, General Manager. And also from staff, we have Melanie Hayden and Lizzie Zaworski.
And Matt running Oyster Point Marina, operating engineers number 3.
I guess we've got a couple more people. Somebody else is on mute, or both of them are on mute.
It looks like we have a 650 number ending in 5251.
I see they're muted still.
So I've sent the 5251 number a request to unmute. It may be more difficult on the phone. You might want to hit *6, I believe. Okay, if that's not working, there's also
Commissioner Mateusz, unless the members of the public raise their hand or otherwise indicate they would like to introduce themselves, I recommend we move on with the agenda.
Right, we've covered item 1. Item 2 is the administrative building analysis, build versus lease, and that's going to be a presentation by Julie Van Hoff.
Tom, Commissioner Mateusz, before we move on to that, the agenda on the very top calls for public comment. The recommendation is we try public comment to see if anybody wants to make that before we move on.
Yeah, public comment.
I do have one public comment I'd like to make.
Mr. Hoff, go ahead.
Thank you for hearing us this afternoon. My name is Matt Hoff. I am the shop steward for Oyster Point Marina. During the last commission meeting, hazard pay was discussed and approved for $2,000 up to this point. At the same meeting, a proposal was made to increase hazard pay to $4,000. All the commissioners that took part in that meeting agreed that this was a reasonable and fair amount. It was determined that the committee would look at the hazard pay proposal for another $2,000 to bring our totals to $4,000 to date. Our question for the financial committee is, where are we at on this today?
Thank you. We generally don't have a back and forth conversation on these things, but we'll definitely take that under consideration for an agenda item for a regular meeting. Do we have any other public comment? Hearing and seeing, do you see any hands raised?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right, I think moving right along with item 2 then, Julie, will you continue?
Share my screen here. Okay, so this item was brought to the Harbor Commission on July 15th, 2020. A little bit of background, in May 7th of 2019, the Harbor Commission directed the interim general manager to enter into negotiations to purchase a lot in Portola Ave in El Granada from Coastside Fire Protection District. On June 5th, 2019, the Harbor District purchased the lot for $1,265,000. A request for proposal was issued, and a proposal deadline of September 27th, 2019. On March 16th, 2020, a state of emergency was announced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This event has caused a decrease in expected revenue sources and uncertainty in forecasting assumptions. The district forecasts were updated, and it is anticipated that future funding for capital improvement projects will decrease. On May 14, 2020, a community forum was held to receive input from the general public on the priority of district projects for recommended inclusion in the capital improvement program. The administrative building project was identified as one of the projects to put on hold until a funding source could be identified. An analysis is presented here to the Finance Committee that shows that over a period of time that leasing a building is more expensive than actually building an administrative building. But all of this is contingent on certain assumptions that I've made, and those include that the administrative building lease will continue to increase by 3% per year, which has been our historical amount that it's increased. The cost to build a new administrative building will be approximately $2.1 million or $2.2 million. The expected interest on debt issued is 2%, and the cost of issuing the debt for people like bond counsel and financial advisors would be approximately $60,000. And the cost of utilities and maintenance, which is all on the landlord currently, but if we went ahead and built a building that we would have to pay out of pocket, we're estimating that those would be approximately $24,000 a year, $12,000 for utilities and $12,000 for maintenance. You can see under the build and utilities and maintenance column, here is the total amount that we would expect to pay. Here's the projected interest if we were to get a loan at 2% for 30 years. Not a loan, but we issue debt for that amount. Utilities over a 30-year period at $1,000 per month would be $360,000. And same with the maintenance costs and bond issuance costs for a total of $3,680,000. Looking at the 3 years at 3% increase per year for the lease, it's $4.9 million with estimated savings of about $1.2 million. I have the backup payment schedule of what it would look like and the detail of the lease schedule of what that would look like. I don't know if you want to go into that detail of information at this meeting.
Perhaps you could just put it up for public interest briefly.
Sure. So here's the payment schedule. Here would be the bond issuance amount, approximately $2.1 million. I looked at what the range of tax exempt bonds were selling at, and it's anywhere from 1.5 to 2.4%. So I took the average of that to be approximately 2%. I estimated that the period of the debt issued would be 30 years. The number of payments per year would be monthly. The start of the loan date, which that's kind of past us by now, but the dates are all going to change once we decide whether we're going to move forward or not. And then, so a monthly scheduled payment would be $8,057. Here's the lease schedule. And here's our current lease payment per month is $8,500. And then you can see every time our lease comes due, which is on 6/1, it increases by 3%. that amount's always historically been rounded, so it's rounded up to the nearest $100. And those numbers, like this total number, ties to the summary page.
Great, thank you.
Or,
Julie, curious, when you talk about the payments, I see there's sub options when you're buying a house. If you go to bi-monthly payments, sometimes you get a reduction in interest that's fairly significant over the life of the loan. Would that apply here, or being public or a bond or something, it wouldn't apply here?
yeah, I've never seen anyone issue debt that would be a payment on a bi-monthly basis. I haven't seen it happen. I have to do some research to see if that is even a ability, but most bond issuances do have an ability to prepay the debt. So as long as we make sure that that language is in the bond issuance, that we would be able to prepay some or all of the money.
That would definitely help. Well, as far as
Yeah.
number 2, is there any discussion on item 2? Because I would like to recommend that we proceed with building our building and doing what we have to do to move into our own space. So I'd like to have some discussion on that.
Tom, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
So I agree. I think that at some point, if it's more expensive to rent, it makes no sense for us to continue to do that. So if you're looking at a 30-year bond, I mean, how long, Jim, do you think it would take to get this building built? I mean, I know that the 30-year bond is not going to necessarily be tied to it. I'm just curious in terms of time. And Julie, have you looked at other maturity years? I mean, I would normally go with a 30 for sure, but I was just wondering, and I don't have, sorry, I'm calling in, so I don't have your presentation in front of me. So I'm only listening to what you're saying, but are we looking at like 15 years as well? And I don't want to be in a situation where it's like a variable rate and then we have to change it. I mean, I'd rather do a long-term, just using the long bond, the 30-year, but I'm just curious if we've looked at the other maturity or the years to maturity.
Yeah, well, so I did calculate the break-even point, which would mean that it would be as expensive to lease as it would to build. And with the assumptions, it is approximately 25 years. If we want to go on a shorter issuance, I believe that the district would be able to find the additional money someplace, but we would have to definitely take a hard look at our budget so that we could make sure that our monthly payments would be sustainable, over at least a 5-year window.
Okay,
25 years would be, we would be saving as much money either way. And the other thing is that we might look at using, if this project is shovel ready before some of our other projects, we might look at financing a different project instead of this one, so that we could postpone the issuance of that debt, and the economy might have bounced back by then, so we might have better ability to make different assumptions, and that we would really know what we would need to do.
Well, the other thing with the break-even analysis is that besides looking at the break-even analysis, the money that we'd have spent actually purchased us a hard capital asset versus handing somebody else money. So at least we'd come out ahead in the long run.
Right, I agree with that. So Tom, what's your recommendation? Do you want to just, do we want to give a proposal to move forward to the board, or do we want to give the board options? I'm fine either way.
I would say I'd like to have the staff bring this forward as a agenda item to be approved. And the only options, well, we don't have to specify it. I'd say I'd like to recommend to the staff, we build the building, and during the staff presentation, exactly what Julie just presented, we may be able to take some of our existing funds and lower our bond and different costs and maybe accelerate this a little.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Do we need to make a motion for this? I mean, maybe we should, just to make it very clear that that's what we want. Or, I mean, if we don't have to, we can just recommend and give direction that this be put on the next meeting agenda, which is fine with me too. Jim, what's your preference? Hello?
The direction that Commissioner Matoush gave was to, one, move forward towards constructing the administrative building, and then two,
Right, to put it on.
and then have staff prepare a staff report on the different options that might be available now, either through bonds or looking at our current projects and when those monies will be due, to push it down the road a little bit, or fund and build those funds now and maybe sink a bond for a different project in the future to lower our bond costs. We can do
Right, but I thought.
prepare that report.
Right, but I thought that, okay, Tom, I misheard then. I thought you wanted to have this also go to the board for discussion.
Well, a committee can't
Right.
unilaterally recommend something. It has to go to the board anyway.
No. Right, I know, but I'm just, okay, yes, so that's the, yes, okay. Yes,
So
what
staff
you just
will,
said, I'm in agreement.
Yeah, staff will
But
prepare.
this isn't coming back. This isn't coming back for another finance committee meeting is what I'm asking. It's going to, whatever we do now for a staff report to be prepared is going to the board, right? Instead of coming back for another look at in the finance committee?
No, it's
I
going
think
straight
there
to
will
the
be
board.
a finance committee report that will
To the
contain all
board.
that information, the finance committee to the board.
Perfect.
And then you can
That's
ask me to explain
yeah,
it.
no, I get it. Yeah, okay. Yes, I'm in agreement with Tom.
All right, I believe that staff has direction and they concur.
Yes.
We have the direction from the finance committee, and we'll assist in developing the finance committee report in accordance with that direction.
And I see that that was the
Perfect.
only item on the meeting today. So I'm going to recommend we adjourn the meeting, and I'd like to thank all for attending. And I'm appreciative of seeing the public that has participated in the meeting so far.
And I'll second the motion to adjourn.
With that, the meeting is over.
Thank you, Lizzie and Julie.
Thank you,
and Jen.
commissioners.
Thanks, bye.
Okay.